Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called This Town Proves We Can Still Build Beautiful Cities. I did not know that we stopped building beautiful cities. That's news to me, but I want to check this out. So come join me and comment, like and subscribe.
This new Dutch town proved that we can still build beautiful new cities. Meet Brandvoort, a charming cyclist and pedestrian-friendly neighborhood near Helmond. It is special in multiple ways, because it has the structure of a traditional Dutch fortified town. But it is brand new and equipped with all modern luxuries. Some thought that this experiment would fail, but instead the concept worked extremely well, creating a popular place to live and solid proof that the principles of traditional urban design still work.
Why wouldn't it?
Not only that, but a large part of the housing in Brandvoort is actually affordable or even consists of social housing, instead of just being a resort for the ultra-rich. But is this the recipe for better cities worldwide? Or can we improve on this town? And what is the future of Brandvoort? I went there to find out. Welcome, I'm Ruben from The Aesthetic City, a platform devoted to making our cities a little bit more beautiful and livable. Brandvoort and I go way back. In 2009, I already went to Brandvoort to take pictures. Because this town is one of a kind, I was curious and excited to experience what a new traditional town would be like. Back then, only around half was finished. Today, in 2024, the ambitious project is almost done, including its surrounding neighborhoods. And
isn't that a long time? I don't know anything about building cities.
The town is a success. The individual phase is sold easily and the residents are happy. But the existence of this town is very unlikely. It was criticized by adherents of modern urban planning.
Why?
Because it would just be a copy of an old town. Even worse, it would use historicizing or retro architecture. And in a country with people that regard themselves as so incredibly forward-thinking and innovative, that is of course not done. But as you will see in this video, this completely new town wasn't built out of nostalgia. Instead, it aimed to fit the place where it was built and uses successful, pragmatic ideas that people have applied for centuries. At first, how was Brandvoort founded? In the 1990s, the population of the Netherlands was growing and more housing was needed. The Dutch National Planning Committee developed a plan, the so-called Vierde Nota Ruimtelijke Ordening Extra, or Fourth Memorandum on Spatial Planning Extra. This plan called for the expansion of cities in specific areas, which would be named VNEX locations, as an abbreviation of the name Vierde Nota Extra. And Brandvoort was such a location. Originally it was situated in the municipality of Meerlo, a small agricultural settlement, but it was annexed by the bigger city of Helmond for development. Few of the VNEX locations would be as special as Brandvoort would become. They would have weird or plain and monotonous architecture. They would be sleepy suburbs, just expanding on the edge of town. Brandvoort was to be very different. For the plan, two brilliant architects were recruited. First of all, Rob Krier. This is the older brother of Leon Krier, famous for Kajala and Poundbury, which you might know from some of my videos. Rob Krier sadly passed away recently. He called Brandvoort one of his crown achievements. Then there was Christoph Kohl, an experienced and prolific German architect and urbanist, who cooperated with Krier on the design. The companies Wissing and Grondmei cooperated as well, and Paul van Beek would design the landscape. The design team did something very different than in regular projects. They chose for the design of a typical fortified town, as can be found in the province of Brabant, where it is located, surrounded by more suburban, rural outer neighborhoods, or buitens. All the buildings would relate to the typical local Brabant architecture. Construction began around the year 1998, and in 2007 the first phase was complete. Instead of being just an expansion of the existing city of Helmond, Brandvoort would be its own community, with De Veste being its core. De Veste is the part that looks like a fortified town, and the buitens around it are named Schutsboom, Brand, Stepenkolk, and the newer Hazewinkel, Lieverdonk and Kranenbroek. I know, that's a lot of Dutch to process. Buildings were designed by Krier and Kohl, some by the firm Breitman and Breitman, and many by Scala Architecten, a Dutch firm led by Mieke Bosse and Peter Drijver. Scala already had a lot of experience designing affordable, locally inspired architecture in great numbers. Apart from these firms and many others like LSWA, there would be another group of architects who would shape the future of this place. An Italian professor and his American students of the Notre Dame School of Architecture. Before we move on to tell about the Americans in Brandvoort, I'd like to tell about something exciting. I'm working on a new website that will have all my videos, interesting projects and much more all under one roof. For this purpose I use Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. Squarespace makes it super easy to create a completely personalized website using their new guided design system called Squarespace Blueprint. For example, I could choose between a professionally curated layout or build a site from scratch. Squarespace also allows you to make and sell courses, has built-in analytics and powerful flexible payment tools. And it's all super easy to use. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/theaestheticcity to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. And now let's get back to it. The ministry wanted Brandenvoort to create local jobs, so a number of local architects were hired. But not all firms built with the same quality that was liked by the inhabitants, leading to some criticism. To fix this, Rob Krier decided to call in help from overseas. He contacted the University of Notre Dame School of Architecture to ask Ettore Mazzola, an Italian professor leading the Rome program, if they could develop a plan with architecture as it should have been done. Mazzola accepted the invitation and brought his students to Brandenvoort and the surrounding area. In just a couple of weeks, they documented local architecture and created a sort of pattern book of the region of Brabant. They also pointed to problems with the existing buildings. Instead of being ignored, the new ideas and criticism were embraced, and the team was given 2 lots to design, number 18 and 22. Once their designs were done, the result was so successful that they were actually used for plot 18, and their findings were also used to inform the design of other future blocks.
That's amazing.
The end result is a beautiful, picturesque town with nice squares and meandering streets. In the middle of the main square stands a classical market hall, which might be the crown jewel of the town. Children safely use their bikes and play freely. Little shops line the central square. It's all very peaceful and quiet. It's just a pleasant place to live, and that's exactly what it was designed for. Brandenvoort even has a train station. Overall, the plan has been a huge success. The homes sold easily, and by now it is almost finished. So, on what principles was this plan based? Traditional urban design. First of all, the town makes use of the unbeaten formula of blocks, streets and squares. After a century of trying to reinvent the wheel, often with disastrous results, we seem to rediscover how well this recipe works. The design of Brandenvoort is very human.
It's classic for a reason.
Friendly. It is very safe for cyclists, pedestrians and children. Although cars can get to most places, they cannot go everywhere and always share the street with cyclists.
It's car-free.
The streets are designed to discourage speeding, and parking is moved to the back of the houses, inside of the blocks, keeping the streets free of parked cars. Adaptation to the context. Brandenvoort truly belongs in the Brabant landscape. The architecture fits the local culture, the local climate, and builds on the same principles and shared history. It continues the story of the location, instead of trying to deny it. And finally, affordability. Brandenvoort is not just a town for the rich. The first phase of Brandenvoort consists of 22% social housing. They were built with the same quality and beauty and mixed through the others.
That's
and remember that this is quite rare. We don't see this in many places.
No.
As is often the case, there is criticism.
What's to criticize?
Because Brandenvoort was so different, it was an easy target. The first point of criticism is, why would you design a city like a 17th century fortified town? Well, there's a very simple answer. Because traditional urban fabric is still the only type of urban fabric we know will predictably lead to pleasant, successful places. We have tried the tower in the park concept. It failed. We have tried car suburbs. They failed. Today, we need places that are dense, walkable and can be adjusted to future uses. The traditional urban fabric still does this the best way. And to be honest, I don't expect we'll find other recipes for cities as successful as this anytime soon. Bringing us to point of criticism too. Isn't this town just a form of nostalgia? To answer this, let me quote a nice piece of wisdom. Tradition is about preserving the fire, not about worshipping the ashes. I'm personally not interested in nostalgia at all. But I'm convinced the architects weren't either. They just saw, hey, this works. People like this, and it fits the location. It's the best idea out there, so let's do it. Building traditions are technologies given to us by previous generations that worked really well. So instead of ignoring them, why not use them for our benefit? Then criticism point 3. How is this type of town compatible with a country or people who wants to be progressive? Isn't it reactionary to build like this? Well, I would say get your definition of progress right. Progress, in my point of view, doesn't just mean embracing whatever is different or new. I believe progress always serves a certain purpose. The improvement of the human condition. So this means making people happier, healthier, more prosperous and thriving, and not just chasing change or whatever is novel. So if this town is a success and does make people happy and lets them thrive, isn't this the most progressive thing we could do? Or must progress always look like glass blocks? I'll let you decide in the comments. Brandevort isn't perfect, of course. One of
Okay,
the
why?
biggest problems, perhaps, is that while it looks like a small city, it doesn't really function like one. Because traffic is diverted around the center, only destination traffic goes into the heart of the town, making it quiet and giving businesses a harder time surviving. Most existing cities have a reason for existing where they are, like being located on the crossing of two roads or where trade happens. But then again, do the
Okay.
residents of Brandevort really care? They value the quiet of the town, while still living in a charming, walkable, safe place. Another point of critique I would bring forward is that not all the architecture is equally nicely detailed. It doesn't always look as authentic. The most authentic looking traditional architecture comes with the use of traditional construction techniques. An example is what building culture from Oklahoma is doing. By
That's
building
pretty.
entirely out of brick, they create buildings that have this authentic quality. Unfortunately, it is more expensive, and Brandevort needed to offer social housing in the mix as well. I guess
need to
you can't
cut
have
costs.
both, at least not at this time. With the enormous success of Brandevort, you might expect the municipality to be smart and say,
Yeah.
hey, it works, let's do
We're
more of
duplicating
this.
this.
Right? Well, almost. The next phase of Brandevort, called De Marke, was already planned out and ready to be built using the same successful principles. But the municipality of Helmond decided that instead it would be better to choose for an untested novel concept of a smart city called Brainport Smart District. This would
Why?
become the city of the future. Where did we hear that before? Brainport Smart District would be filled with sensors and technology, and it would look like this. Randomly placed modernist blocks in a park-like setting. At first glance it might look futuristic,
Yeah, but I like
but
it.
let's be honest. Is it really? The buildings you see already exist in many Dutch towns, so they're not very original. Apparently the future is yesterday. Maybe we need to move beyond the blocky minimalist aesthetic. And while we're at it, invent something different from the science fiction vision of what the future should look like. In the case of Brandevort and its expansion, I don't see any reason why all the sensors and other technology couldn't have been integrated in the existing design.
Yeah.
They wasted a lot of money and a good plan for nothing. It's painful to say, but modernist urban design tends to flop, while traditional design tends to do better and is preferred
Okay.
by a large part of the population. So they're taking on a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wish them luck. They already had to reduce their ambitions by a lot to cut costs.
This is like bless
If
their
it gets
heart.
built though, it will be the best natural experiment ever. We can just compare the two places in 70 years and see which one will be more successful. You can place your bets in the comments.
It's not a
So
competition.
that is the story of Brandevort. I believe this sound really is a hopeful sign that we can still build amazing new places that are beautiful but also affordable, walkable and safe for children. If you're visiting the Netherlands, I encourage you to take the trip by train and take a look. I'm happy to read what you think. If you like this video, please like and follow our channel or become a patron to support our work. Don't click away yet. If you are interested in this topic, you might like the next video, which is about the crazy problems created by reinforced concrete. A big thank you to our patrons and see you next time.
Okay, so I think I get what they mean. Like this person like hates like modern architecture, but I can see why. Like I can maybe feel I don't know. Like I can see both sort of like both options here of thinking. Wow, we're moving like we're not actually innovating. Like we're just like it's sort of like it's old. It's played. Like we've already done this. But it's like at the same time, it's like, yes, but we've done this. And this is like he said, that was crazy to me. Like, that's the only design that we've proven that actually works. Like this town design, the city design, we've proven, like it's proven to actually work. Which is kind of crazy if I think about it, because it's like how like modern and urban planning has been going on for like, I don't know, hundreds, probably thousands of years. And it's crazy that like, oh no, the most like, the most successful model is just like, I think I'm understanding correctly, it's just sort of like a main, bro, you have like a town hall or something, but just like you have like the center and everything like surrounded it, it's just in squares. It's just squares. And because I think it makes a lot of sense. I think most cities probably, well, not all of them, but most cities, and especially like the downtowns and probably like older cities are sort of like built like that, often just, squares. I think this is like the most successful model, which again is crazy. I have no idea where as humans, like we invent this, but I think it's successful. Apparently, like I didn't know that. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but I do think like it's easiest, I think, for like the human mind to sort of like comprehend again, like the model is easier, right? Like you have like the north and you have a south and east and a west, and then it's like, well, yeah, and everything's divided by squares. So you have like, oh, it's like right at the corner where this is, or right at this street, and it's, you know, it's between like streets, I don't know, 20 and 25. So it's just like, it's easier. I at least I believe that's the case. If you do it all like squares, just divide everything by squares. But I do agree with that. Like, yeah, sure. Like if it was worked. And we have actually, because we tried other things, but this is the only thing that actually we have proven. No, this is the actually like no fail method. Why should we like steer from that? It's like, no, yes, of course, give me that. It's proven to work for a reason. Oh, it's played, it's been done before. Well, yes, but again, it's like it's there because it exists for a reason. So I don't really care about those things. Visually, I do really think like it looks nice, it looks pretty. It looks like, I get what they mean, like, it looks a little bit old-timey, and it's like, oh, it's fortified and stuff, but I was expecting something like a straight out of, like, a medieval city. No, it's not like that at all. Like, I think it still looks quite modern. Like, it's not, you know, I wouldn't think, like, if I were walking in one of those streets, like, I wouldn't think, oh, it just, like, did I hit my head and fall? And through, like, I traveled back in time into, like, the 1500s? No. Absolutely not. Everything I think looks like still a little bit modern. It doesn't look that old. Does it look classic? Yes, it looks classic, but you know, I'm not expecting every single city or every single town that I'm in to look like straight out of like everything's glass and everything's skyscrapers. Like, no, of course, you know, if you have a suburb, like, it's not gonna be like that. It's not gonna be like, oh wow, this is the moment for innovating and having like these weird buildings, which are not there. There's a time and place for them as well. But I do think that I wonder if like the criticism was coming from probably architects or maybe some architects, not all of them. But I think if your branch is more of like, yes, you know, I want to do like all these weird looking buildings of like, you know, you have like a triangle coming right to the side, and there's like a balcony, and there's like, of course, if you're an architect and you're into that kind of architecture, because that's like your job or that's the sort of like style that you prefer. I can see why something like this would be like very like unappealing to you, because it's like everything's so basic and normal that I'm not into this. I'm looking to try and break the wheel and do something super different and shift like the paradigm. But it's like, well, not everything like it's gonna be like that, because again, it's like it's a city and it's created with the, I think that's not when I mean like this is not the time and place. It's because it's a city that they're you know, they have to expand. There's like a lot of people, they need housing. Like, this is not the case of like, oh yeah, let's create like the most random building ever and it's gonna win like a bunch of architecture design sort of like prizes. I think this can definitely win an architecture prize, but it's not just about the design of like the building as in like aesthetically, like it looks in a particular kind of way. It's more the urban planning itself, or like, oh yeah, when we build a city that actually works and people are happier here. So I think, yes, you know, if you're like, it's a walkable city and people are just like happy living, just walking everywhere, cycling around everywhere, and they just like leave like, and it's very peaceful. It did look quite peaceful. It looked very quiet. So if people are happier and are happier than other places, then yes, sure, of course you deserve an award. I think it's kind of like crazy to actually to think of it that way, but it's like, oh, I like that what he mentioned, like of tradition of like, oh, it's not about like, you know, it's not old as in like, oh, it's out of fashion, it's out of style. No, some things are classic for a reason. And it's not like we're sort of like, oh, it's tradition. No, it's about like actually doing things that work and adapting them to our new way of life. And I think it's sort of like that saying of like, sometimes like you have to like look backwards to actually move on to the future. I think it's a little bit of that, like, of yes, you know, sometimes you have to actually reflect and look back on things past to actually innovate and actually move forward. So I think this is the example of this, is like, yes, you know, sometimes you actually do need to like, let's take a look at like what people were doing like a bunch of years ago, and let's do that. Maybe obviously with modern amenities and a modern twist, but not as in like aesthetically. It's just like in the actual practical uses of this, which I think again is like maybe visually, I do think that it looks pretty, but I can see why people would think like, oh, it's so boring. It's very boring looking, but it's like, well, you know, I don't think it's like, it's not boring. It's just like, it looks very classical, which I don't think it's a bad thing. But apparently, I'm surprised that they were like, no, like the others flopped. It's like, oh, well, you know, the more modern looking cities or more modern looking buildings, apparently they flopped. I don't really know why. Is it like because of, I don't know, they look like a big like square. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like a big square with like a lot of windows, but again, not everything needs to be made out of like, not everything needs to be a giant skyscraper made out of glass, which I think is obviously the trend in these like, I don't know, like the past probably few years. I think there's been a trend of like everything's glass and everything's like very, I think you tend to associate that with like modern looking things of like everything sort of like very sleek, clean, a lot of glass, a lot of like shiny things. They don't really use brick anymore, or even concrete. Well, maybe they use concrete. I don't really know the building methods, but you know, as in like the finishing touches, like they don't really look the same. Like they have like a lot of texture, and there's like bricks, and it's very colorful. Which I think, like again, modern. I don't know, city planning or the trend. I think it's moving towards just everything's very like sleek, clean, no colors, everything sort of like white or gray. So I like seeing a little bit of like, no, it's I like it because it's a little like old timey, and you know, it's a vintage inspired. Although again, it looks like just like a modern, I don't know, it looks like a modern town. It doesn't appear to be like, oh, again, it's like very old looking. So I do really like those buildings. Obviously it's a matter of like preference. Some people actually would prefer, probably like he said, no, I do really like the way, like the sort of like huge windows building with a lot of like very sleek, very clean, and a lot of like glass reflecting sort of like walls with, because they have a lot of glass. Well, yeah, sure, that's obviously that's sort of like your prerogative if you really do enjoy that. But again, maybe like move somewhere else then. Like, yeah, well, this town is definitely a lot for you, and I think it's great that you can get to choose, right? It's like, yeah, we have something for everyone, so you can actually get to choose like where you live. Although in this situation, I do really enjoy the fact that apparently it was subsidized, and that's why it sold very fast. I'm guessing because again, they were like, it's very affordable, so yes, and probably subsidized by the government, at least some part of it, and they were like, yes, we have to like cut corners and cut costs because it has to be cheap, because it's like, yes, it's like social housing. But it's like, what a nice thing, because I think usually when, I don't know if like I'm blaming governments in general, but I think usually when there's like free or is subsidized, or you know, it's seen like the government is seen as handing you something, or maybe like helping you along, especially I think when it comes to housing, they tend to be like not that good looking. Like you're gonna get like the short end of the straw, and it's like you can't complain because you know you're in social housing or you got help from the government, because if you don't like it, then you know pay privately. But it's like, well, yes, they're there for a reason, because I actually need it. So it is really nice that even though this is again in social housing, it looks very pretty. That's really not the case for a lot of like social projects and social housing in other places. They're not visually, they're not that good looking. They're sort of like, they're very uniform, and again, they just do not look as nice as this. And also, again, this is an actual city. Like the city itself is built like this, and you have everything, all the amenities that a city could possibly have. And you get those things, and it doesn't matter you're in social housing, which I like, because it's like you shouldn't be treated as less just because you know you don't have the money to afford like other things. So I really do enjoy that, and that's a really good on behalf of probably of the government. That was probably like the one that created that, the one that created this, the bean mix, the something, I can't remember the name, but they did it. But yeah, I also I think I agree with the fact of like, oh, it's seen as like, oh, progressive. It's not progressive. It's like, what does progressive mean? Progressive doesn't mean just like, oh, you have like a futurist aesthetic or something of the sort. It's like, no, what does progress and progressive actually mean? It's like, well, you have a happier and healthier people. If people are happier because they are actually enjoying their lives here, isn't that progressive? It's like, yeah, well, I would argue, yes, of course, because it's not just about the aesthetic, it's actually how people are feeling. And it's kind of crazy. It's like, yeah, we have to like reimagine how the future looks like. And it's kind of like wild and sort of like an impossible thing of, oh, we're back imagining like how will cities look like in 50 years. It's like, it's kind of like impossible to say. I don't know, you would, because you always have the thing in your mind of like the sci-fi city of, oh, for flying cars, and there's like no roads, everything's in the air, and you have like these huge buildings, and it's like, well, maybe, but I don't know if we'll ever get there. I think again, is this the image that we have, because I think it's been fed on, you know, it's been fed like, I don't know, culture, whatever, like media, That's when something's futuristic, that's what they show you, and that's what we think as humans. We're like, oh, so futuristic, that's what we should aim for. But it's like, well, yeah, we have to maybe like step out of that a little bit and be more like, no, what actually works for us? Like, is this feasible, and does it work for our way of lifestyle? Does it work for this climate and for each specific town? I think that's really more important than just trying to get on like, oh, we have to be futuristic looking, so everything's gotta be like shiny and glass and, I don't know, dark. It's like, well, no, again, not necessarily. Progressive and future, like, I mean, we don't really know. Well, progressive, yes. Future, we don't really know. Like, we don't have we can't time travel, or there's like impossible to actually, we can predict, and maybe we can like think, but you know, at the end of the day, we kind of like do not know anything, because again, it's the future. So who knows who will ever be here in 50 years or more. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.